A shutdown of business, the main air and sea ports, and a few road accidents as Dominica braced for the impact of Tropical Storm Matthew on Wednesday. SIDEMA triggers the regional response mechanism at the peak of the hurricane season, and possibilities for Dominica's cooperation with Cuba in tourism development. I am Julian Morris with the Channel 5 News. The details after this. We begin with an announcement by the National Hurricane Center placing Dominica under a tropical storm warning on Wednesday, which led to Prime Minister Skerrit advising a shutdown of both public and private sector operations from 1 p.m. Here is the Prime Minister's statement issued at noon on Wednesday.
Over the past few days, we have been monitoring a weather system east of the islands. Because of a number of absent features within the system, it has been difficult to make projections as to its movements and likely time of arrival. The Office of Disaster Management and Meteorological Services have been working around the clock to provide the government with information so that we can make critical decisions. They have also provided you, the people of Dominica, with information which would assist you in making informed decisions for the safety of yourselves and your families. In situations like these, what is paramount is the safety of all our citizens. Yesterday, the government took the decision to close all schools today, Wednesday, for the safety of our children, given the fact that intermittent rain was predicted. I have been advised that the National Hurricane Center at 11 a.m. today named the system Tropical Storm Matthew and is advising tropical storm warning for Dominica. Consequently, the government has decided, given the intermittent rainfall and the tropical storm force winds, which we will be subjected to later today, to advise the closure of all government offices and private businesses at 1 p.m. today, Wednesday. All government offices and private businesses will reopen on Thursday, September 29, 2016. That is tomorrow. An advisory with respect to schools will be issued later this evening. We want to advise people to stay home as much as possible so as not to be exposed to the possible hazards out there. Be safe, everyone, and let us all pray for better weather conditions. May God bless our country, Dominica.
Tropical Storm Matthew has become the 13th named storm of the 2016 Atlantic hurricane season. It's forecast to eventually strengthen to a hurricane posing a threat to parts of the Caribbean and possibly parts of the U.S. later on. And Dominicans made it a point of duty to head to the supermarket to ensure they were well stocked on goods and food items as they braced for the impact of Tropical Storm Matthew. At 11 Wednesday morning, the weather system was upgraded to a tropical storm and public and private sector businesses were closed from 1 p.m. Supermarkets had a healthy flow of customers purchasing items to prepare for whatever effect the storm may have on the country. In the morning, the streets of Roseau were virtually devoid of traffic as people stayed indoors to avoid the heavy rains and strong winds of Tropical Storm Matthew. However, later in the day, the volume of traffic grew as people made it their priority to get home and secure themselves and their property, following an announcement by the Prime Minister in light of the weather system being upgraded to a tropical storm. And as is often the case, during serious weather conditions, there's always negative impact on travel. Tropical Storm Matthew is no exception.
Right now, we're currently at the Roseau Ferry Terminal where operations have been cancelled due to deplorable weather conditions. As a result of Tropical Storm Matthew, operations at the Roseau Ferry Terminal will resume on Friday. Tell us a bit about our current status with the cancellations of the ferry.
Due to the inclement weather conditions, Express Diesel have taken a decision to cancel ferry operations for Wednesday and Thursday. We had one ferry scheduled to go to Martinique St. Lucia on Wednesday and the other ferry on Thursday to travel to Pointe-à-Pitre at 11:45. Weather permitting, normal ferry service should resume on Friday, the time schedule.
She explained that the recent cancellations do not necessarily set back the company, but most likely the customers.
To the Dominicans that were probably scheduled to travel, do you have a specific message to them?
To Dominicans, I just want to tell them to stay inside, be safe, secure themselves, their lives and property, and try their best not to venture out if it's not necessary.
Meanwhile, the operations supervisor says as far as fees are concerned, while discounts will not be offered, additional fees will not be added.
Since the vessels at this time are not filled, we can advise our customers to just come in on Friday on the scheduled vessel. So if you're scheduled to travel to Martinique or St. Lucia on Friday morning, the boat is scheduled to leave at 10:30, so they can show up at the port. Check-in time is 8:30, and there will be no rebooking fees. However, if you decide to rebook for a further date, then if your ticket is one that merits change fees, then the change fee will be $15, only $15. But there are tickets that are not, that the fees do not apply. For example, once your ticket has a plus on it, then that means you don't pay for rescheduling. But basically, the non-plus tickets are applicable for charges. But that is if you decide to travel on a further date than Friday, then it will apply.
And apart from there not being any fees, would you say, or are there any discounts in particular?
No, unfortunately, there are no discounts because basically Express Diesel fares are already discounted. They are really special rates. If you compare them to the other travel modes, you will note that our prices are very reasonable, more than reasonable actually. Recently, Express Diesel has taken the initiative to even reduce fares. We have 250 rates that are applicable on certain days. Persons don't hear applicable on certain days, they only hear the 250. But those fares are applicable on certain days. And also we have reduced the general fare, which is $310 for everybody.
Meantime, Liat cancelled some flights on Wednesday and warned that more could be affected if weather conditions persist. Some of the airline services to Trinidad, St. Vincent, Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica, and Grenada were all called off. I am Deslyn Joseph reporting for Channel 5 News.
The heavy rains and slippery roads associated with Tropical Storm Matthew have resulted in vehicle collisions around the country. Channel 5 News was on the scene of a traffic accident on the Eo-Leblanc Highway near the NP gas station. A white Isuzu van and blue four-door Jeep were involved in the accident. Channel 5 News was informed that one of the individuals involved in that accident has been hospitalized. The extent of injury to the other passengers is not yet known. We were also informed of another traffic accident, this one at the Botanical Gardens. And the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SIDEMA, has once again taken the lead in coordinating the Regional Response Mechanism, RRM. SIDEMA and the Caribbean Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology held a pre-strike meeting of the Eastern Caribbean Development Partner Group on Tuesday. They were preparing for possible scenarios in preparation for the impact of Tropical Storm Matthew. The head of SIDEMA said we were at the peak of the hurricane season and expect that weather systems are still likely to develop and threaten participating states. The CARICOM Disaster Assessment and Coordinating Team and the CARICOM Operational Support Team have been placed on standby to provide response assistance. Thanks for staying with us. With a 55-year trade ban on Cuba being lifted by the U.S., this opens up more possibilities for Cuba's cruise tourism industry. Minister for Tourism Robert Tong acknowledges that this is a threat to not just Dominica's tourism. Tong was commenting on the move by P&O Cruises to drop some Caribbean destinations on its schedule and add Cuba instead. P&O Cruises Edonia was the first U.S. cruise ship to dock in Havana in May since the U.S. embargo.
Cuba is a threat for every single country, but it all depends on what exposure you have. So, for example, cruise is only 9% of our contribution to tourism. So it's not a major. So if you lost some of it, obviously you'd be affected. The thing about cruise is that when you have your overnight tourists, which are your key, the average individual doesn't necessarily see that. The average individual sees the cruise ship coming into port, so they assume that that is the most important aspect. But the true aspect is really the over tourists.
Tong says he's looking at how that can advantage Dominica in terms of building on the Dominica-Cuba relationship.
When we look at it, there will be some impact, but we also have very good synergies with Cuba. Many of our doctors are from Cuba. So based on that relationship, we have to decide how best we can capitalize on those opportunities to bring more individuals to Dominica. The other way we see too is that Cuba, you can well imagine that right now we have over 100 and something flights coming into Cuba. So we also look at the opportunities and the synergies to see how can we get flights from Cuba to Dominica.
The idea of alternatives to LIAT through private-public sector partnership is one that Chief Executive Officer of the Dominica Air and Seaport Authority is supporting. He says considering Dominica is challenged with air access, he encourages private-public sector partnership in this regard.
We would welcome any discussions in that regard, and we would seek to provide whatever support necessary to ensure that we can begin the process of increasing the number of seats, the seats availability within Dominica, to and from Dominica.
The Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority is responsible for issuing an air operator certificate for any entity wishing to conduct air transport services. St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chasney thinks the ECCCA has blocked every attempt for private-public sector partnership in the airline industry. Badwell says it would not be prudent for him to comment on that.
Well, there is a 5-step process to form a new airline in terms of registration within ECA. And clearly, these conditions are established by ECA. There are ground rules that are laid down. So, wanting to have an airline operate within the OECS, ECA is the responsible authority for that. And so, because of the time in which and the process in which it goes through, then some persons do have concerns in terms of the length of time and the details in which they have to provide. But again, these are international specifications that are required. And if you go from one jurisdiction to the next in terms of the various civil aviation authority, and then if you want to register an aircraft within a particular domain, then there is a process.
Tourism authorities have set their eyes on the Trinidad-based Caribbean Airlines on the possibility of serving the island. To that, Badwell says if travelers can access Dominica via the routes the airline serves like St. Lucia, Antigua, Barbados and Trinidad, that would help significantly. And a transformation of Dominica's export sector is how the contribution of the recently commissioned multi-purpose pack houses is being described. In July this year, the multi-purpose pack house in Portsmouth was officially launched, and just 2 months into its operations, Trade Minister Ian Douglas says improvements have been seen in the level of agricultural produce packaged for export.
We are accepting plantains and dashing. A lot of dashing is going out to Martinique, and I think we sent out about 3 containers so far through the Roseau multi-purpose pack house, and we just in the process of doing a mixed container, I think for Barbados under the Propel project. What we are just finding out is there's a tremendous request, for want of a better word, for coconuts in Dominica. I mean, the request right now is about 79,000 coconuts a month that outside persons are asking for. You know, and coconuts have just taken on a new life of its own, and the price is really good.
Douglas says government has invested heavily in ensuring that farmers provide crops for export, and on that note, farmers are being encouraged to export their crops through certified institutions in Dominica.
A program at Dexia where we target in about 5 crops. Last budgetary year we did 3 crops. We targeted hot peppers, dashing and plantains, and we provided some support to some targeted and selected farmers for them to produce for us. What we have found out too is sometimes we give farmers support, and when the crop is ready, they fetch a higher price somewhere else, and so we lose the crop. But we're working on all of those issues. We have the Fresh Produce Act, and the regulations have been passed and is on stream right now. So we're trying to work with the farmers right now so that all of the produce in Dominica will have to go for a certified pack house.
A $500,000 loan facility is also being made available to boat owners to ensure that food crops are exported in quality condition so that Dominica maintains its overseas-based markets.
Because no matter all what you do, even if the Bureau of Standards go through all of the certification which they have done in the field with the selected farmers, and then you have the multi-purpose pack house and decks here doing everything to ensure that the fruit is properly washed, it is sorted. If you do all of that, but then the boat is not properly refrigerated, or the boat doesn't have the proper equipment to ensure that the fruit gets, the produce gets to the markets, in the regional markets, at a standard at which it can be sold, then we just defeating our purpose. So we have set aside $500,000, which we're making available to boat owners through a loan, 90% loan, 10% grant facility at the NDFD, so that boat owners can upgrade their boats, can put in refrigeration, can meet the requirements for entering those markets, because the maritime units will not allow you, especially in places like Martinique and Guadeloupe, will not allow you to enter into their ports if certain things are not on the boat.
Prospects for growing Dominica's exports look bright as a trade mission has been exploring new markets in the region.
We have sent out about a month now, a month and a half, we sent out a trade mission to a number of the islands in the south of Dominica. So they went to places like Anguilla, St. Martin, Antigua, St. Kitts. They went as far as Totola and St. Thomas. And so we have spoken to some of the supermarkets out there and some of the importers of bananas and other products. And we know what they want right now, and we're working on trying to get those products to them. We're also working very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, because we need to know what is in the field so that we can mark it. It doesn't make sense we run to the market and then the market asks for 10,000 coconuts every week and then you cannot find it. So we have a joint agriculture trade kind of committee working together so that we get the information from the field in a timely manner.
And the newly elected Canefield Urban Council chairperson and his team will formally take their oaths come next Friday. Channel 5 News has been reliably informed that the inauguration ceremony is scheduled for October 7 at the Old Mill Cultural Center. A meeting is expected to take place soon to select the chairperson. Maxime Powell got the most votes at the September 12 election, 183 votes. He contested the election with a team of Joyce Dupuy, Michael Coppell, Ingrid Abram, and Michael Timothy. The other four candidates, Aline Wilson, Stangel Carter, Jefferson McPherson, and Alian Abel, also contested as a team. You're watching Channel 5 News. Just to inform you, the sports segment will return on Thursday. To end the news, a reminder of the headlines: a shutdown of business, the main air and seaports, and a few road accidents as Dominica braced for the impact of Tropical Storm Matthew on Wednesday. SIDEMA triggers the regional response mechanism at this peak of the hurricane season, and possibilities for Dominica's cooperation with Cuba in tourism development. Feel free to contact us at news@MarpinNewsSept28th2k16. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the production team, I am Julian Morris. To our viewers around the world, thank you for watching.